Oh boy, that was so much. That
Pretty
was so
good.
much. But we are here.
We are here.
It took such a long time and a long while because of technological situations. The same thing happened in um in Lexi's episode. Like
Really.
my iPad was not trying to work for me, was not trying to it wasn't trying to do anything that I was asking it to do. And I just couldn't understand why. Like I purchased you, I take care of you, I charge you, I upgrade you. I don't know why you are treating me this way, but whatever. Yes, be all glory. Anyway, let's just hop into this. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Becoming Creative. I always want to take the time to just thank everybody for supporting it, for downloading it, for subscribing. Like y'all are out here, and I really appreciate it because I don't know. I guess it's just encouraging. It's just encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's encouraging every time you do anything, and people are like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I dig it. I see that." And so, like, thank you for doing that. Um, this episode is going to be a great one because we are having to re-record it. So anything that you got to re-record because technology decides we are not capturing this. We're only going to capture half.
Mm.
That tells me that somebody mad.
Come
Somebody mad.
on.
And
Wow.
so I know that this is a worthy conversation, a worthy story to be heard. And so we're going to make sure that it's heard. And so this is a re-record of becoming healed. Did we say healed or whole? Becoming healed?
I think they said whole.
Whole?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Becoming whole. We're going to go with that. This this story or this not really a story because it's this talk, this conversation, um I was initially really prompted to make sure we captured it, make sure we talked about it because I don't think a lot of people hear about people's like health journeys. Like we
Mm-hmm.
always hear about the miracles where it's like it was immediate, like, oh, this was broken, I felt God heal it, and like it was just immediate. But this was like a whole process that God like
Mm-hmm.
took you through. And I think one for me to be able to like witness the whole thing and kind of be with you during it was pretty wild, right? And you guys will hear why. And so before we get into all of that, I want to welcome to the pod my girl Shannon Dior. I don't know if you want me to put your last name out there or whatever in case people want to hit you up. I don't know.
I
And so I want you guys to get very familiar with her, kind of like how I talked about with Lexi. She is one of my people. She is one of my people. And I had saw this video recently about like soul ties or whatever or soul mates.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly we are not soulmates, but I just think that the Lord is able to like really do a lot of amazing things where he gives you people for a particular reason and for a purpose, for a time. And thankfully, you're one of my people that I feel like is for like my lifetime. So I'm appreciative of that. I know that mean I know when I said it, I was like, wow, wow,
God.
that was pretty
Yeah, that's
strong.
good. That's good though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I want you guys to welcome Shannon to the pod. She'll be on here regularly, and so I just want you to kind of introduce yourself and give people a little feel of who you are. Boom.
Yeah, sure. I think I started out the other one that didn't record with, I always like to start out with clearly my name. My name is Shannon Dior. I hail from the Boogie Down South Bronx, born and raised,
Come on, somebody.
public school educated, HBCU educated. I always like to start off with that I'm an auntie mom, and people always ask, what's that? Like I have I really have four nieces and nephews, three of them that live with me. And my nephew it was like an epiphany. He just made it very clear. He was like, you're my auntie and you're like my mom. So like you're my auntie mom. And it just stuck and it just made sense. So I love telling people that.
Real quick, I just want to
Yeah.
clarify something. So in my last podcast with Lexi, we were talking about the twins, and I told you about this on Sunday. And she was asking me like, oh, like, let's say Lisa and Shannon was like, you might have to take the twins for 3 months. Like, could you do it? Would you do it?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I would definitely do it. But, I definitely check in with Lisa and Shannon, like, how y'all doing? How's the health or whatever. But I want to clarify that
Mhm.
Shannon is the aunt of my 2 godchildren who are twins. Lisa is the grandmother of
Mm.
those twins. I just, we're in a world where like you gotta
Yeah.
like what's going on. So I just want people to know and just like give some context to that comment. I remember after we released it, Lexi was like, dang, people might think that like, Lisa and Shannon are like, I'm like,
Oh,
I wish I would have said something. But I just want to clarify that right now, just so y'all,
yes. Thank you.
I just want to keep the integrity of what we're talking
Come on
about and
now.
where we
Yeah.
are. And so, yeah, I hope that if you heard the first one and it kind of prick, that's the context of it. So yeah, Auntie Mom, what else?
Yes. Lisa's my mother. So
Yes,
thank you.
Lisa is
Yes.
one of my moms, and somehow we
Right.
have a friend relationship as well. So
Right.
boom.
What else about me? I mean, I talked about my education background. I went to Clark Atlanta University, where I have a bachelor's in science. I mean, a bachelor's in psychology. And then I went to Capella University, where I received a master's in child and adolescent development. Very
Earned,
interesting time.
earned,
Earned. Yeah,
earned a master's.
that
Come
was a
on.
tough one. And right now I am in the process of really picking up and really getting ready to start a career, because I'm healthy and, that's new. This is a new journey. Like when you get a particular age, it's like you're supposed to have all these boxes checked off. And when you don't have them checked, it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, why hasn't my life progressed? And sometimes like I'm constantly reminded by family and friends, like, hey, you had a whole situation. You wasn't just home like being a couch potato. You had a whole situation going on, why you couldn't be out there, why you couldn't be living your life and, pursuing dreams and goals. So it's like cut yourself some slack. So I think that's what I'm learning how to do, like cutting myself some slack and not looking at a clock like, like I know the end. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's how I'll be looking at things, like I know when it's going to expire or when the end date is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like maybe I'm just at the space that I'm supposed to be at the very exact time, doing the very exact thing I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of like taking that in and understanding that and not being so hard on myself, because I'm pretty like organized and like I'm a checklist type of person. So when I'm looking at my list of what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be and it's not checked, it's like this gap. It's just I'm like anxious and you're sweating. It's like, what am I gonna
Yeah.
do? I skipped out. It's like, but you're still breathing, right? You're still living. You still have opportunities. So
Yeah. And I just want to also think about like in your journey, in your health journey, like you said, you weren't out here a couch potato, you weren't being a bum. So like give
right.
yourself some grace. And not only that, you were raising 3 kids in the midst of a health struggle. And so I just want to take it back to the beginning, right? So
Okay.
um me and Shan, well, I talked about it in my pilot episode about like when my life began to turn. And it was a trip to Africa really kind of changed my whole perspective on life and like what it is, what I need to be doing. And on that first trip, I went on that trip with Shannon. And I think at that time that was Shannon's second trip.
Yeah.
And when we were there, everything was cool. Like everything was fine.
Things
We were
great.
basking in the African sun, taking in
Yep.
all them rays.
Taking it
Um,
in.
and like, yeah, it was an amazing experience. We came back, we had testimonies, and like, yeah, it was great. And then
And
it got fuzzy.
then it
They don't remember
got
that. I don't
fuzzy.
remember you. Like then it got wild. And take us through the beginning of like what happened once you got home.
So we got home like a few days before my birthday, maybe like let's say a week before my birthday. So my birthday is August 26th. I celebrated my birthday. I remember because we went to that taco place. You know what I'm talking about?
Like downtown?
Yeah, we went to that. I can't think of the name of the place, but we went to the taco place.
Yeah.
Um, And even then I was feeling kind of like tired, and I couldn't understand why I was feeling so fatigued. And then I remember it was the first Sunday, I believe, in September.
Mm-hmm.
We had to sing, and I literally could barely get through the service. Like
Wow.
I was exhausted, like winded. Like no one is singing like that. I'm going to say no one is singing at that level on a regular Sunday where they are winded and they got to catch their breath like I was asthmatic. And I don't have asthma. I don't have upper respiratory, right?
Yeah.
I got home that Sunday, and it's so weird because I just remember the exact date and time. Like I can remember what I was doing. I just like was recalling it recently. And I like started running a fever. And immediately the thought was, oh, maybe she picked up something when she was in Africa. Everybody thought I had malaria and stuff like that. And like I started going to see infectious disease doctors, and they wasn't coming up with nothing. I had been to the ER, and I've had so many of those tests to check for like infection and bacteria, and nothing was coming up. And at the time, like I was seeing a rheumatologist, but he didn't suspect anything. So it was really just management, like seeing him every 6 months. It wasn't anything. And I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, I'm going to Africa. My former rheumatologist is Ghanaian. He was like, all right, you need to wear sunscreen because it's hot out there. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But
did you have on sunscreen when you were there?
Probably not. Yeah, I just became vigilant. Don't come for me, all the people who say you're supposed to wear sunscreen. I'm fully aware of it. Thank you very much.
We know that we're Black. We know the myth.
We know
are
that
out
we can
here.
burn and the rays can affect us as well. Thank you very much. So I do wear sunscreen now. I do a lot better. But no, I didn't have on sunscreen. I'm pretty sure I didn't. But anyway, so from September all the way until I was finally admitted into the hospital in February, it was President's Week. I was sick that whole time and didn't have an explanation. And when I say sick, I mean fevers of 103. I couldn't keep anything down. I was vomiting. By the time I hit February, I had lost like 60 pounds.
You did.
And the way my body shape and frame is, I don't look so well skinny.
Well, let's talk about body and shape frame. These are the things. So, like from my POV, right? Me and Noel's POV, because we had many conversations in the car, like, "Yo, what's going on? Like, what is up? We don't know what's going on." Now, if you know Shannon, you know Shannon got hips. I'm just going to emphasize this. Shannon got them things, okay? And so once I started seeing this like decline in the way she looked and like in her weight and things like that, when I saw them hips go, I was like, Noelle, I know something going on.
What is happening?
All of that is well and good, but them hips ain't there, and I'm concerned, right? I was already concerned, but now I'm concerned, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why do we see this thing happening to our sister, and there's no name to it? There's no, like, what is going on? And so I just want to give that context. Like, it's like, yeah, she's losing weight, and like, yeah, 60 pounds, that's noticeable. But when them hips went, it just got scary for me personally. Like, I never felt scared for someone that I cared about, and that was like that was just kind of wild. But yeah, you can continue on there. You don't look good skinny like that without hips.
No, that wasn't a good look for me. Even in my now life, like I wouldn't want to lose 60 pounds personally. But you know, it was a rapid decline. I watched, so at the time, like I had a short haircut and I was already going to transition to growing out my perm. So I had cut my hair short. Shout out to Chrisette Michelle, because when I saw her cut her hair, I was like, oh shoot, it has to happen.
That's it.
I was like, well, why am I trying to grow out this? My hair is short anyway. It wasn't like I had long hair and I just wanted to keep the length. So I was like, I might as well just cut the perm out. So I had like from like September to like right before Thanksgiving, like I was just like really sick. Like I couldn't keep anything down. You know, the skin, everything was going. But I had a break. Like I say Thanksgiving for like 2 weeks in November, like things started to look like, okay, I'm getting better. I'm kind of back to myself. I had, at that point, I hadn't lost 60 pounds, but I had lost some weight. I was like, oh, I look good. You start trying on clothes you couldn't fit. So I was like, still okay. But then like right after Thanksgiving, like it just went downhill again. It just started like all over again. So like I got a short haircut, then that hair is coming out. I just have like my skin is like just damaged. Like I used to wear, I don't know if they remember, but like I used to have like a strong supply of Band-Aids because literally my fingertips, it was like someone was taking razor blades and like my fingertips were just splitting, like the actual fingertips. So I was like keeping my hands covered in Band-Aids, sores on my body, frequent nosebleeds, hair was coming out, the weight was dropping. Even my cognition, like my cognitive state, like we call it brain farts or brain fog. So I was like not being able to complete sentences. Like I knew what I wanted to say, but like I was forgetting and like I just couldn't articulate it. I was declining.
What did you think was happening? Like, what did you actually think was going on with you? Because this is like before you had a diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if all of these things are like happening in your body, you notice that something is wrong. Like what was kind of going through your mind of like what's happening?
At first I did think maybe I picked up something in Africa because when I was there, our tent, once we had packed up our tent, we realized that there was like these ants on, like we were on ants. And I woke up. Remember, I woke up and on my forearms, I had like all these red disc shaped things on my arm. They didn't itch, they didn't hurt, they didn't like. I only realized it because I had like looked at my arm, rolled up my sleeves, and I was like, well, maybe something bit me or I picked something up. It's very possible. But once I had been to like 1,000 infectious disease doctors in the ER and they couldn't find anything, at that point I was like, well, I don't have a clue. And my mother kept saying, like, you need to make an appointment with your rheumatologist. And at that time, like, I didn't have, I mean, I really could have just advocated for myself, but like, I really need an appointment. But I didn't even have the strength to do that. Like, I didn't have enough in me to like kind of fight that phone call.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like this strong relationship with my rheumatologist yet. Like, I won't say we were buddies, but like we were close because like I had his cell phone number. That's how it was. That's how it became later on. Like I had a cell phone number. And so I didn't call the rheumatologist, right? I ended up going to an infectious disease doctor. He was like, you don't have something on our panel, but you probably really need to see a rheumatologist. And that's what I remember he told me. But I still didn't do that. And I remember and I also became combative with people in my house I don't know if that was a part of the illness or.
Well, what was happening in the household? Like, what did everyone around you think? Like, yeah, let's talk about that.
Listen, and this is a house of believers. And I love to tell this story because somewhere along the line, I don't know if we've done it as Christians or maybe the world has interpreted it as such, is that once you become a Christian, everything in your life is grand. Like you don't have problems, you don't struggle, you don't have to seek. Like, I don't know where that narrative has come from. Like I said, I don't know if it was us or it's just
I don't know.
The world is interpreted, but literally all hell was breaking loose in my house. Capital HELL. It was breaking.
And it's like as it should, not as it should, but like it should be expected, possibly just for those who may be new believers. Like, you've made a conscious decision to serve the Lord.
Right.
And so in you serving the Lord, you are in direct conflict with the world and flesh and everything that the enemy rules. So he is going to get mad. He is now going to tempt. He's now going to try to shake your faith, right? Especially after you making this confession or at least living a lifestyle of wanting to like please God. As a result, the enemy does not want you to complete that mission. He actually wants you to backtrack. And so I just want to throw that out there for those like with that misconception, like, oh, like I just gave my life to Christ, everything should be cool, like everything should be good. No, but you are now more equipped to now deal with whatever is being thrown at you, and you have the tools and access to God to be able to fight and to be able to overcome because out of your salvation, there is victory already granted to you.
Right.
So just want to throw that little imp in there. But yeah, what was going on in your household of believers?
So like so we have these kids. So I mean, it's public knowledge. Like I have a sister who was struggling and who couldn't raise her kids, right? So she kind of dropped them off in a sense, literally kind of drop off. And so now we have these set of twins who were preemie, but thank God they didn't really have any health issues. They are premature, but they didn't have any real health issues. Two little adorable little bundles.
They really are.
Yeah,
I might throw a picture. I might put a picture there.
Oh, they're so cute. Then they have a brother who at the time I believe was 3. And then I have a little brother who I believe was 4, because him and his uncle are like maybe 13, 14 months apart.
Yeah.
So that was happening.
So you got 4 small people.
4 small people. 2 in diapers, 1 in a pull-up. You just
Come on.
My mom was working full-time at a hospital and was in full-time ministry. And if anybody knows my mother, she's super dedicated. She will go do what God has called her to do, even if she had bullet wounds, like fresh ones. Like she'll just kind of pack it and kind of do what she got to do.
She different.
That's who she is.
She's like a living Avenger. She's like an Avenger.
She's ready. That's all I'm gonna say. She's ready for it. My dad is a contractor, and work had come to a complete halt. So we're a 2-family income. My house could not run on just my mother's income. But even though my father did not work from, I want to say September, and he did not literally, he went back to work in February after he took me to the hospital. Then he started working. So all of that time, he doesn't have like a steady income. Like because he's skilled, like he's doing like these odd jobs and like his own type personal contracts, but like the money just wasn't coming in as quickly. And this was like, we got to trust God. I mean, God really did provide. He provided for the twins. And sometimes it's like the whole idea like God provides is like God provided me with a great job so that I can have a lot of money, which is provision, right? But if it's like I don't have that, but God is still, people are coming into my life and they're blessing me, they're dropping things, like that's provision. But sometimes I'd be like, I want the other kind of provision, like God gives me like a wonderful job or a lump sum of money, and then I can do it that way, not the I'm waiting on what is God going to do for me today kind of sense.
Right.
So that's happening, right? You know, when money is not coming in and you can't pay all your bills on time, and you have kids who are in private school, you have a set of twins. So now we got to buy 2 of everything. I can remember my father was saying when they had to go into Target, they just stood in like Babies R Us, very sad, because they knew they had to get 2 of everything. And it was like, my mother said it was just quiet for like a few minutes. They just stood there in the middle of the baby aisle, like, But again, God provided. People bought Pampers, and we had to do formula. It was like a whole thing. So that is happening in the house. And my sister is with her own struggles and all of that jazz. And now I'm sick. So I'm home, but I'm sick, very sick, and left to care for these premature children, which I will say is that the Lord did that. Even to this day, like because I couldn't even hold my own body weight, but for some reason, like I could get strength. So this twin A, Soraya, she had like some hole that hadn't closed in the back of her throat. It was going to close, but sometimes milk stuff would get stuck back there, and she would start like gagging. All I had to do was like kind of pick her up, but I had to be quick, jump off the couch. Those were the moments that I had the strength. Right? Or if I had to like really care for them in the middle of the night and that type of thing. But they were really good twins. They wasn't fussy.
They really were. They weren't like,
they wasn't necessarily like needed extra care because they were premature. So all of that is happening. Tensions are high a little bit. And like my father, my father is a Caribbean, West Indian, Dominican man, and he's gonna work. That's how they were raised. So he went out the house every single day. Like he was just not home trying to work. But when he's coming home, he's like seeing his oldest daughter just deteriorating, and it was like driving him crazy. Now he's a man of God, he's a believer, and it got to the point, there was this one day where it's like my mother figured if she could just do something, maybe if she get off the couch and walk around. And my mom is like, y'all know I'm not being lazy.
Right.
Clearly, right. I get it. Like, y'all are not thinking with all of the brain cells that God is giving y'all. Y'all are not using spiritual discernment right now. Y'all are being
ultimately they're panicking. They are panicking. So it's like it's out of that, like
that's where they're coming from. And I'm like, I just need y'all to think this one through. I don't need an activity. Okay, I don't need an assignment. What I need, I'm sick. I need help. I need help.
I need medicine. I need
something.
I need a hug.
Point, like whatever the drugs are, I'm taking them. My father was so upset with me one Saturday because he went out, I was on the couch. He came home, I was on the couch. I didn't even sleep in my room for like all those months. Like I just stayed in the living room on the couch. He took everything out of my closet, like off the hand. He just threw everything on the floor. And I'm like, now you know that don't make no sense. I'm like, so one of my siblings felt so bad. It just kind of helped me put it back together. And I just feel like okay.
Come on. Yeah.
I need the deacons of the church. Y'all gotta come and help this guy. He is losing it. He's literally losing it. And I always think about how other people would see me. Like you never consider like, hey, you're sick and you're experiencing all of this illness and this pain, but it's like, how your loved ones, like when they see you, like what are they experiencing? How are they feeling? That kind of thing. So yeah, it just got worse. Like it didn't get better. And then there was a strong point where I felt like, well, I had decided that I wasn't going back to another doctor. We were done with that. And the only way you was going to get me there, you have had to drag me, literally.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to another doctor to get the same results, which was nothing. And I just figured like, it just seems like this is how I'm going to go. And I kind of got comfortable in that. Like this looked like I'm going to die. Like this is how I'm going to die. And that was really my position. I was really waiting to die, I guess. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to die and like the kids kind of be home.
Yeah, that's wild to have those kind of thoughts. Like now you're starting to it's like you're starting to cross this threshold of like, okay, this is what it is. It's like almost seeing like someone get to a point where they're like, all right, all my stuff is in this cabinet, if something happened, because it could happen at any point. This is what I want. People start talking like that, and it's like,
exactly how I was talking.
Wait. Why are we becoming accepting of this situation? What's going on? And just as someone who was there, and like, we would come, me and Noelle would come over, a lot, and we're like, I think at some point we were like, well, we don't know what's really going on. Let's like get her things to comfort her. I don't know. Like we were just coming over with stuff like, hey, I remember I bought you a Snuggie. I was like, oh, this is, oh yeah, she gonna love this Snuggie. Bought her this Snuggie, and it was like leopard print. We were like, yeah, remember? Like, remember you're fashionable, like you like this stuff. And like, we were just like, yo,
that's
what are we gonna do? What's going on? Like, I never thought I would have a feeling or like that someone close to me is like going down a road where I can't handle a call. That's just what it is. I can't handle a call. I'm not there. And so to see that happening, it was just kind of like we were really like, I don't know. Like when we get in the house, we're like, hey, what girl, you okay? Yeah. You up? Yeah. All right. You sitting up? We would walk out that house and be like, what is going on? Like, what are we gonna do? And so, just to give context that I know your parents were panicking. I know your father was panicking because he's very emotional, like he's sensitive. So I know that was taking a toll on top of the fact that his other daughter is kind of like out here wilding, and like these twins, it's just a lot of factors happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's wild. What was the turning point? Right. So we get through the panic, we get through, he done took your clothes, threw them out because it's all he knew how to do. Like, it's such a Roy thing to do. Like, you know what?
Is, like, so dramatic. Like, what the and what did we learn from this? What did we learn from this?
What did we do?
Nothing.
Like, what was the outcome you were seeing? Like, oh, miraculously, strength will rise up in her. She will put herself back in the closet. She is not sick anymore. Like, what did you think? Like, what did he? I want to know. Like, what
I don't know.
were you thinking with it? But it was just out of. He's like, "This is all I could do.
Do something. Do something with yourself." I'm like, y'all know what's happening. I mean, we don't have a name for what's happening, but we know something is happening.
Something is happening.
I just chuckled. I was like, unbelievable. But yeah, just to say, like, Noelle and Kim were like really, I needed that though, because like, those were moments where I could laugh and I could smile through the pain. The company was important. The gifts, like Noelle, like, you know, I love makeup and heels, and I couldn't do any of those things. Like, I couldn't walk, and heels that was off. That was out. She bought me these really dope clogs and these black shoes, and in my mind I'm like, this is so nice, but she know darn well I can't do anything with these.
We were just trying to get anything
like the thing, like I could feel like the heart, like, you know, you're gonna get back to that, or you know what I'm saying. But even like wondering, like, what did they think after the fact, like that kind of stuff I think about now. Like, how did they feel? Because I mean, y'all pretty much was coming over like almost every day, it felt like. But yeah, so the turning point, there was a moment. I'm going to stand by the fact that I believe that the Holy Spirit revealed to me what it was. I was being combative with my mother, really just trying to explain to them, like, I cannot do this. I can't, whatever you think I can do, I cannot do. And why, like, y'all hear from the Lord, like, what is happening? Y'all hear the Holy Spirit speaks to y'all. What's happening? Why y'all don't have a word? Like, why is God not giving? Like, I was that kind of attitude. Like, why the Holy Spirit not speaking to you? Why y'all don't have a word yet? Like, that kind of thing. Like, and I literally could hear it so loudly. I could hear the word lupus, and then I still had an attitude. I was like, I don't even know what that is. One, I don't know what it is. I think I've heard of it, but like to explain what it is, like, I didn't know anything about that. And I remember saying, I don't got no lupus, and my mom was like, what? And then that's the conversation just kind of ended there. And then I want to say like January, my father started coming into the living room where I was sleeping. And my father's not loud, but my father was every morning at the same time was coming in to pray. And I just knew I would like wake up and I would see him like on the floor in prayer. He did that for weeks, every single day, until I don't know what he was praying about. I don't know any of that. But what I do know is that something broke in me that I could say, okay, I'll go to the doctor. Because at that point I was like, I'm not going, I'm going to die here. I can remember I used to have my great grandmother's ring. And I remember telling my sister, Joey, I was like, oh, you can have that and the makeup. Like literally just kind of giving out things that were important to me.
Oh my gosh.
Where my pictures were, I had just previously had like a wonderful year. Like I had just graduated from college. I was going to grad school. I planned like I was about to get into the Department of Education. I had an interview that I couldn't complete because I was too sick. It's all of that kind of stuff. So you're just watching everything that you work so hard for that, you know, just not come to fruition, like kind of just go down the toilet. So once that was a Friday. I said, I'll go to the doctor. My father was like, okay, this is like he just didn't leave. He didn't go to work. He didn't go do anything that day. I went to see my primary care doctor as a walk-in visit. And when I got there, my doctor, he was an older Jewish man, and he started flipping out. I mean, I think he was yelling at my father, actually. And I just had like this manic smile, like, cause I just always was aloof sometimes, just like dazed, like, where is she?
Yeah.
And he was like, why is she this sick? Why haven't y'all brought her in? What the heck? And like, he was like panicking, because people generally don't be coming into their primary that sick. Like, you go to the ER for stuff like that.
Or 60 pounds lighter
Yeah,
than
he
the last time they seen him.
The last time I saw him was in August, or before I went to Ghana, because he's the one who gave me the malaria pill. That's the last time I saw him.
What happened?
Yeah. He hooks me up, gives me oxygen, takes he took like this blood sample because my heart rate was like all over the place, calls the ambulance. My father just humbled out because it was nothing he could say. It was like, take me to the hospital. My mother was at work and she was in a staff meeting, and my sister calls her. It says the ambulance took Shannon. She's having a stroke. I wasn't having a stroke, but she said she's having a stroke. So my mother is in a staff meeting trying to figure out how she's going to say that everybody at the job knew that I was sick and going through whatever. Mm-hmm. So my mother's like, all right, I have to say this. And my mother is not, I mean, she cries clearly, but like, that's not like her. She only cries like twice a year, right? Literally. This was that one of two. This has been the second time she cried over this. She said as soon as she opened her mouth, she just started weeping in the staff meeting. Everybody was like, oh my God. So she gets to the hospital. My father's there. They do what they got to do. They was like, we're clearly going to admit you. We're going to admit you to the cardiac floor because your heart rate it's not at rest. Your heart rate is not where it's supposed to be. It's too fast and stuff like that. And we don't want you to stroke out or whatever.
Right.
Spend time. I think I spent 7 to 10 days in the hospital. I got good old steroids. Didn't know anything about that, but I knew they made me feel better. I was like, oh, I can do everything. I can build something. Like I can tell you about the steroid story later, but I get out the hospital. I go for my follow-up maybe a week later, maybe something like that, if not less. My father takes me. I go see my rheumatologist, and he, at that moment, he confirms that it was like by looking at my charts, looking at my ER visit. Because for the most part, when you go into the ER, like the idea with lupus is to treat the lupus, not all the stuff that the flare is causing. So clearly, if I have a rapid heart rate, like I got to deal with that, but you really got to treat the actual lupus. That's always been his method. He said the ER doesn't always do that. They just start running every test, but I get to him, he confirms what I had heard a couple of weeks before, like just kind of heard it. And he's like, yeah, it's lupus. And then he started me like, okay, this is what the regimen, this is what I want us to do. And I'm like, okay. And I leave the office with my father, we in the parking lot. And I just started weeping. I was, I mean, I'm glad that I know what it is. It's confirmed. Like, at least I know something. I wasn't losing my mind. Yeah. But like, I'm feeling real emotional now that I know now, like, them steroids don't play. Like, my moods was all over the place.
But
man.
I think it's also because it gives, like, you actually are able to give a name to this thing.
Right. So it was a relief.
But not only that, it's like, it makes it really real. Like, dang, I have this. Like, right. Now, okay, I have this autoimmune disease. Like, this is what it was this whole time. And so the realization that now I have to live with this thing, that I think that creates that breakdown of like, oh my gosh, like before we just thought, oh, there's something happening, we don't know, hopefully it's not permanent. But now it's like,
right, I have a disease. I have a disease. Yeah. Like, just thinking, like, even the word I have, like, I mean, after a while, like, it was like, am I taking ownership of this thing? Like, I have lupus. Yeah. Living that out. And what, I don't know, I don't even know what it is. Like, I haven't done any research. I don't know what it is. Like, whatever medication they're giving me, I'm taking. I don't even really know the side effects of it because I just feel better. And I sympathize with both communities. I'm like all about wellness. I'm all about healthy living and eating, and not necessarily like, I don't bash pharmaceutical medication or pharma. I mean, I know they have their, they're not perfect. I know about that.
They be out here tripping.
I totally understand when, hold on one second. I just feel like nobody calls me this much during the day. And I just feel like, why y'all not at,
Always.
and it's just be my mother who be wanting to chat. That's another podcast. Clearly be like best friends.
Literally.
What was I saying? Oh, I sympathize with people who, like, I took that pharmaceutical medication because I felt better. I went, what, September, October, November, December, January, 5 months in pain.
Yeah.
No break. And then you gave me this pill and it makes me feel better.
Right.
No questions asked. And I took it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't regret it. But so I understand, it's like, until you've had excruciating pain, don't talk to me about pharmaceutical medications and why I shouldn't take them and why I should. Herbs and stuff are perfect. They work. You know, God's herbs, they grow from the ground, like, they work. Don't get me wrong, but so yeah, I just thought it was gonna be over. I got a diagnosis, I got the meds, and I could start my life. I think I had gotten into LIU, but I got into a grad program, but I couldn't go in the fall. So I was like, I had it all lined up. I was like, I'm going back to that interview. I'm going to grad school in the spring. I was like, we gonna pick up where we had a break, but I'm back.
Right.
But it didn't go that way. Not whatsoever. It didn't even look that way. Not really.
So how long between you can you hear me?
Yeah.
So how long between you getting your diagnosis, you got the steroids, you're out here, you're feeling up, right? I won't pull that in here.
I'm curious what you're gonna say.
I was about to say, because I felt like you were doing things during that time too that I was saying, like, yo, that girl got roid rage, like she needs to chill out, right?
Yeah.
So I was about to say you got some bouts of roid rage, but like it's all good.
Yeah.
You get through all of that, and then I want to kind of fast forward a little bit, right? Because in between there you do have some flares, right? But it's not as crazy as the past, right? Because you didn't have any medicine, you don't have a diagnosis. And so I really want to get to the beautiful part of this where I've watched you come through it, and you've built like this resilience. You've the fact that, like, I guess after you got your diagnosis, you go back to school online and you get your master's. Even seeing you do that in the midst of a flare and all of that, you still trying to, like, nah, I gotta read this thing, I gotta do this thing. And it's like, it's just beautiful how, like, God uses these opportunities to build us. And we think it's like a moment of weakness, but it's like God is, and we were talking about this last night too, like, in that scripture of, like, in our weakness, God is made strong. God's strength is actually made perfect, not just strong, but it's made perfect. And so wherever that strength needs to go, it's the perfect amount of strength to get you through, to push you through. And when I think of that, I think of 2020. I think of how COVID was like, that was a strong, that was a weakness in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so in that, I feel like the Lord's strength and the Lord's power and the Lord's faithfulness was made perfect in that time, especially for you, because I feel like I don't want to give up I'll let you talk about 2020. What did that mean for you? How did you feel? Did you feel like, dang, I'm just living with lupus and maintaining, or did you feel like this turn where it's like, it's off me?
When COVID became, like, you start hearing talks about it. I remember first hearing about it. We was in Baltimore. We was in Baltimore.
This is very weird, but, like, you know how the things pop up on your phone, like memories? And, like, we were on March 6th was the day we were, I'm assuming actually March 7th is the day we came back, because they said that it was like this national emergency,
Oh, wow.
state of emergency, which is like literally today we was probably at home about to set up in 2020 to not be at work and all that stuff. So
doing nothing.
it's kind of crazy.
I remember first I was like, oh, I just did not believe anything they were saying. I'm like, they hyping us up. Why are they trying to scare us?
Yeah.
Before we even talked about their fear tactics and how the media was being used, I was just like, I'm not paying attention to this, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to 2020, the world is shut down. And I say the world because there were so many things open. A little world. My name is Shannon. That little girl was like, you're quoting things that is actually I like my name is. But I remember having to go at the time I was working at the church, and the church was still open. And I remember saying, well, you know, my mother was like, are you gonna go out? Because my mother had gotten into it with somebody, like, you know, they needed me to come down for something because someone else who had like an upper respiratory autoimmune couldn't come because of COVID. And my mother was like, she does too. But I'm saying like she will go, but like, don't do that. I was like, Mom, pipe down, Lisa, pipe down, Lily. And I remember saying like, one, I needed to go pick up my mother's glasses and I was going to the church anyway. And I remember walking outside to the bus like, well, Lord, you got me through lupus, and you're getting me through it. And I don't see why you would not get me through COVID. Yeah. And when I say get me through, like a strategy, right? Not just out here, just all willy-nilly, just
right. We're not out in the streets coughing and just
like walking into danger. Like, yeah, like let me just, when I say God is gonna keep us, like God gives you a strategy, people, on what to do. And I just left the house and didn't look back. Nobody was really on the bus. Nobody. This is like the very top of like nothing had actually been like shut down. It was a Friday. That was probably like the last weekend. Everything was kind of like open. Remember going down to the church and doing whatever. And you know, COVID. Let me just say, like, COVID was a real thing. People really died. Families were really distraught and turned upside down. Our children were really stuck in the house, could not socialize. Like so many kids struggle with socialization because if I was in the house at 4 and I couldn't leave the house, like so many things. But that had to be one of the best years of my life. Like the last time I was admitted was right before COVID. So it was like 2020. Was I in hospital 2020? No, I was in the hospital that previous December.
Yeah.
I was I was in there for Christmas. Yeah. I couldn't remember what came before 2020, so nobody don't come for me. I was about to say 1999, but I was like, that ain't it.
Like, no, there's only 1 year that was right before it.
It just went away. I was like, well, it ain't 1999, but y'all can fill in the blanks. Thanks, y'all. That's that brain fart.
Literally, like
I was admitted. That was the last time I was admitted, was in 2019 of that Christmas season, because I was in the hospital Christmas Day, which was trash. Let me just put that out there. And that was the last time I was admitted. And then 2020 comes around and it's like I'm out here in these streets, you know, during COVID, and the whole glove mask thing did not work because it didn't make sense to me. Because, you know, anybody listening to this podcast, if you from New York, especially the Bronx, like it's always been nasty.
Bruh.
And I just feel like we should have been wearing masks and gloves. Riding public transportation, that should have been a requirement because it's nasty. But you know, and it's two, wild. It was like, even though like God gave us immune systems, he gave us great defense to fight. But I also was taking immunosuppressant drugs that suppress my immune system so that I would have lupus flares. So that also made me vulnerable to pretty much anything. So if you had a cold, if you had anything, like I was like very vulnerable to that kind of stuff. So I had to take all that into consideration. So I really just started being vigilant, like my church, or our church, my mom, my aunt, like doing research and started taking different types of supplements and really our church, I love it that our church really started talking about health and how, like, just because God has given us this great immune system, like he created us with this great immune system, like we do have to take care of ourselves. Like you can't just eat junk and processed food and expect this to work properly.
Literally.
Like, so we started talking about health and we started talking about exercising and eating right and supplements. And like, it was like a whole, it was like a thing, like a whole chat. Like people was like, people had information. We were sharing it with each other because like, you know, God wants us to be healthy people. Like he wants us to take care of our bodies. Like this is, you know what I'm saying? So I started being more vigilant with that. And at the time I still was going to infusion therapy. I still was taking immunosuppressant drugs. I still was going out, you know, going to church because our church was open. Shout out. Thank you, Lord. Our church was open the whole time. Our doors did not close.
Shout out.
And I mean, if you look at it now, sadly, those churches that were closed, some churches in New York, like just opened last year and they are suffering because of that. And I just, that God's grace would, that's all I got to say about that.
It really matters. Just a little sidebar. It really matters where you go to church and what they're preaching and what they are, you know, ultimately teaching. And just like, I'm grateful that we go to a place where our pastor hears from the Lord, and not only hears from the Lord, but like even the resource. And you know, pastor just talked about this past Sunday, like the resources that come to us, like when you want to obey God and when that's your real intent, the Lord makes a way of escape. And so even sending that video or that audio of what was happening spiritually during that time and how that moved him to say, okay, no, get to the church. Whoever can get to the church, get to the church. We're staying open. Like if you are not already intentional about how you're serving God and intentional about like what your real motive is, and it's not to discredit other churches and say that now that they don't have the right motives. That's not what I'm getting at.
Right.
But when you really are submitting yourself to God, you reap the benefit of that. And so like the Lord knew that us being closed would not be beneficial to the health of our body. Right. And so us being open that whole time, it saved us. Because I don't know what would have happened during that time if pastor or if God did not like put it in pastor's heart to speak out about like what's actually happening, or people who have been kind of looking at, you know, when we think of like comparative religion and how we're going through that, like just privy to this information, like something might be actually happening in the background and we need to be aware of these things. Like all of that doesn't come if I'm not already like in a position to like receive from God. Because it could sound like, you know, people hear this stuff and be like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Like people can go
nuts.
there.
You're nuts
and you're crazy. But like, no, you got to be able to discern when it's like, no, there's some truth to this. And now, Lord, I need you to help me like
understand,
filter that out and understand. And so, it matters where you go, and it matters where you are planted. And wherever you are planted, you got to fall in line with where you're planted, because then it's like, well, what are you there for then? Like if you're not gonna agree or listen to the leadership of where you are, well then I don't know, you might be in a position where you gotta ask God where you should be.
Just right. I mean, false prophets is a real thing.
It's real, especially today.
Like, you know, people with itchy ears and people looking like sheep, but they're actually wolves. You know that whole scripture. But I thank God, because it's not like and our pastor has talked about it publicly. He's talked about it like online, that he thought like, okay, well, I'm gonna just record sermons and the singing group is going to record songs, and like that whole process didn't even work.
Did not.
Because he said like he had recorded some stuff, it would not render. We went in to record songs, it didn't record, and they was like some of our best singing, it didn't record. I started running a fever out the blue, like everything was like, and I still wasn't like thinking like, well, why is this ain't working, like what we going to do Sunday morning? But I love the fact is that I could truly say that our pastor loves the Lord, and he wants to do what God is telling him to do, not how he's feeling. I mean, he had his own, I mean, I don't know if not that he was fearful, but we just didn't know what was happening. We didn't
which is
know.
natural. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't want to expose my congregation to something that could be deadly and harmful. But it's like, we can't be out here quoting if God be for us and singing, or God will fight for. Like, we sing all these songs and we read these scriptures and these things are real, but it's like, when do you put that in play? Right. So it's like God had to give him, the Holy Spirit had to give him a plan. Okay, this is what you're going to do. And then like she was saying, like, people in our congregation, there was a woman who had been doing research for decades, and now it was the time to like start bringing this information to the congregation. And God had everything in place. So it's like, faith over fear is a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one said that we wasn't nervous or wanted to be cautious or like we didn't know what to do, but it's like, the big question is like, am I going to listen to what the Lord is saying, or am I going to do my own thing because I'm afraid? You just got to make it. What's your choice? What are you going to choose? Right. So, 2020 was a huge year for the world. And that was like my healthiest year, honestly. Like, I didn't go to the hospital that year. I wasn't admitted that year. My medication I ended up getting a new rheumatologist. My medications decreased. My health started getting better. Even we don't always talk when you're sick or have an illness, like we don't always talk about the mental health, what happens there emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, like all the stuff that is happening on that end. And I had an opportunity to so we still made videos, we still posted, but like we were open on Sunday, and I had an opportunity to work with our children's ministry, and I had a segment I called it Throwback Thursdays. And I had just like the list of scriptures that I had to work with for every week. And I started creating content for our website for children. And it hit me. Like, I always loved work. I've always worked with kids, but I didn't necessarily want to be a teacher, like in a classroom, if that makes sense. But I was like, well, what can I actually do with children? And I started creating content, and it was good. There were good videos, and I was like writing it and producing it. And my sister Joey, she was editing it, and my sister Juju was assisting me because I told them to. And I was like, I am creating good stuff. So like, even out of that, like, I realized that, oh, I'm good at this and I love doing it. Sometimes I was doing it when I wasn't feeling 100%. But I was still doing it. So I started creating content, and it was really good, making videos and mini movies and working with the twins in between their asynchronized lessons. Yeah, I have to get creative.
I just want to say, like, this conversation has been like great, and just, I guess, recapping. And I think it's always beneficial to kind of go back and just like kind of talk through the things that you've gotten through and overcame. And yeah, I just think I hope it's really beneficial to people. I feel like it is, and I just pray that everyone is like receiving it well. I don't know, but I guess one of my last questions is, do you feel like you are healed from lupus?
I will say yes. I strongly believe that I'm healed from seeing everything through the lens of lupus, if that makes sense. Like, kind of waiting or even anticipating the next flare, right? Like, a lot. Like, I lived that for a long period, like looking at the seasons, looking at the weather, knowing like this is the time I flare, like kind of arranging my life based on when the next flare is going to happen. So do I still have a lupus diagnosis if they run blood work? Yes, I still have a medical diagnosis of lupus. However, I'm not living my life like I have a lupus, if it makes sense. Do I take care of my body and stuff like that? Yeah, sure. But I'm living my life like God has healed me from that thing mentally first, right? He's healed me from it, not owning it, not kind of embracing it like it belongs to me. and kind of just moving. And even if, I would say, God forbid, even if I was to get severely ill again, I just feel like I have the tool, and I have the faith, and and I have all these things that God has given me and imparted to me during this journey to kind of get me through it. Like, I know it's not the end of the world. I know that God is not out to get me. I know that he's not setting me up to I
Yeah.
like all of those thoughts that I was having is like, why is this is how God is going to take me out? Like, kind of really blaming the Lord for, for this happening. And like, he's like this trickster, like all the weird things that I was thinking and feeling. So yeah, I would say I'm living a life that is healed and whole from it. And just looking from a different lens, looking from a different set of eyes,
Yeah.
and not living my life for the next flare kind of feel.
That's dope. That's dope. I mean, when I look at you, and if you know Shannon, like the girl is healed, right? And I love the way you phrased it in that yes, like I feel like your medicine count is like significantly
Yeah.
lower than before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, yeah, you do things to maintain your wholeness, maintain your health, which is what all of us should be doing, right? If God
Right.
delivers me from anything, like yes, we celebrate the deliverance, we celebrate that, but you must maintain that
Mm-hmm.
deliverance and make sure that you're in a position where you're you're constantly like edifying yourself, constantly encouraging yourself, constantly literally like adding to yourself spiritually. And so yeah, the girl is healed, y'all. I'm just gonna put it out there like that. Like, and I say that also thinking about all the things that you've accomplished out of it. I think about the fact that you've was able to get a master's out of it, right? You start to get this realization of like where you kind of see yourself either in ministry or just in life after the
Mm-hmm.
flares and everything, right? You making content for kids and having, it's all scripture based and all of that. And I'm excited because one, even us doing this podcast, right? Like this is a
Right.
part of that journey, a part of that process, and you not only becoming whole but staying whole. Like you
Right.
gotta continue the process. And it's like God is doing a lot of interesting things with us
Mm.
this time, and just like
What did you
making
say?
us aware and just drawing us closer to him, honestly. Like, and
Right.
I'm really grateful for that. And I see it happening with other people around us, like our other sisters. Like it's happening. And
Yeah.
so that's good news. That
It's
is
good
good
news.
news. And so I
Yes.
want to just thank Shannon for joining us today. Not only
Yeah.
that, she will be joining us regularly along with Lexi and some other folk. And yeah, any like ending words or parting words? I don't know. You have anything you want to
So
add?
much on the spot. I'm just, I would say, you know how we use words like season and fellowship. I would say I'm in a
Ah,
season.
aha. You got to squint your eyes when people start talking about
Yeah, like I'm in a
ah.
season of
Mm-hmm.
really gratitude. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. I'm really grateful. And I would say, like, no, I don't have everything that I would like right now. There are things that I'm learning how to wait on the Lord, enjoy with peace, and I'm learning how to do those things. So yeah, like I don't have, there's things I just don't have right now that I really want.
Mm-hmm.
And God is really teaching me how to wait. But I really and overall am really grateful for what I've been through and what I've gained from it. Like realizing, like, I am really a strong person, like not in my own strength, of course, but like God is strengthening me, and I'm seeing him at work in my life and where he was even when I felt like he wasn't there. So I would say that I am extremely grateful for where I'm at now and where I'm going, and what God's going to have me, what he wants me to create, in the spaces that he's going to place me in. where I could really be a witness, really for the Lord. So I would say that I'm grateful for, like, again, for the podcast, for this, being able to talk about really my testimony and talk about what I've been through. And that's just like a very small percentage of what it looked like, because it wasn't always, even once I was feeling better, like it was so many other things I had to contend with, and dealing with jealousy and bitterness and just a whole heap of things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I really had to deal with all of those things, and it wasn't going away because I like closed my eyes and hoped them away. Like it wasn't going away like that. So like, yeah, and just looking at where I'm at now and the age that I'm at now, knowing that there's still so much that I can accomplish, and there's still so much that, I can get off the ground and be successful in, knowing that, not looking at time from my own human perspective, but like understanding that God like really operates outside of time, and like time does not restrict the Lord. He does not have a calendar necessarily, like in the sense where he's like, oh, we missed it. Oh, I can't do this because like, no, I just, God don't see time like I see time, so grateful, definitely gratitude, and just I really do have expectations for great things to happen, and for me to have to be able to work hard at it. That's fine. Like I'm expecting that, and yeah, like I love this podcast. I really just hope people tune in, check it out, share it, because it's a space where it's necessary for the world, not just for other believers who are listening, but non-believers, skeptics, just people. I just like just people.
Pray that you guys would definitely hit us up in the comments if you have any thoughts, any ideas, anything you kind of want us to talk about more, or chop it up with Shannon. Please, if you're on YouTube, hit us up in the comments. We want to know your thoughts and know what you think of the topic, what you think of the episode. And so, yeah, I love you guys. Jesus loves y'all. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.